So some of the tools you're going to need, I'll just kind of do a quick rundown for the rear suspension job. Is a good light on a battery, a sawzall of your choice to cut off the shock if it's rusted, obviously at least 2.5 liters of AHC fluid, a pick to get those seals out from the AHC line, a 22 millimeter recessed little wrench like this to get that top 22 millimeter off, any kind of 1/2 inch that you have, a short one and a long one would be good. This right here is actually an oil filter socket. It's a 24, and this is actually what I use to put that new nut on, because the 22, for some reason they changed it to a 24. So 24 millimeter on a little tiny, preferably actually a swivel. If you have a swivel would be nice. And then after that, you're going to need a 13 millimeter wrench, a 13 millimeter ratcheting wrench. If you do what I do, which is replace those lower two welded on nuts with regular ones, a 12 millimeter on a swivel ratcheting. This is going to be for your AHC line. There's 2 bolts. You're going to need, I don't know, oh, I tried to use this, didn't work. I don't know what that was for actually. Some sort of grease for lubricating the little metal parts in between those bushings. A good set of pliers to maybe hold the shock in place, prevent it from spinning, that kind of thing. And then you're going to need a 17 millimeter on a relatively large 1/2 inch ratchet to get that lower bolt off. Of course, a hammer. You can't go wrong with it. Can't do anything without a hammer, right? I don't remember what this was for, honestly. I'm taking this video after the job is done already. I don't remember what this custom 10 millimeter is. I think this is for the battery clamp, maybe. Let's see, these did not work. This is a 24 mil. I tried to put it on top, but it's far too deep, and it wouldn't fit. And this 22 also won't work. It's also too tall. That's why I ended up using this shallower 22 that I could put my little tiny, this all comes off, by the way, all this comes off, but that way you can put it on there, and then you don't need a lot of space to get this to tighten down. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, a grinder, obviously, with a metal blade would be nice. Again, you only need this if you plan on cutting your shock off like I did, only if it's rusted. If your Land Cruiser does not have rust, then you're not going to need to cut it off. What is this? Oh, this is for the transmission. I did the transmission fluid service on this too. This little hex is for the chuck plug. So this is not for that job. So pretty much this is it. I mean, not a lot of tools, but if you do have rust, definitely prepare to spend a full day with this, and actually maybe even a day and a half. So yeah, good luck. All right, so here's the awesome AHC suspension that all the AHC owners claim it's bulletproof and reliable, and they have 500,000 miles. Well, I think AHC is the worst system ever designed, and it's very problematic. And today we have to replace this leaking shock, and I'll show you how to do it. As you start to jack the vehicle up, it'll put pressure on the other wheels, and then this fluid will just start pouring out of here. Alright, so to show you where it's leaking from, it's actually leaking from the top of the shock itself, where it connects to the fitting. You can't really see the fitting from this angle. Way up there. So it's actually it's not from the fitting, it's from the shock itself because it rusted out. And I'm 90% sure it's from the shock itself. I already bought a replacement AHC shock, which was like very overpriced, I thought. So we're gonna jack this thing up. We're gonna remove this lower bolt. You have to buy the special fluid, AHC fluid. I'll show you in a second. Yeah, fun times. You got a special wrench to get it from the other side. Yeah, so from there, I'm not going to show you every single part, but I'll try to do my best. All right, so I tried to remove those bolts from the top, but they're completely rusted. So as you can see, right there is the shock. Here's my Sawzall, and I'm going to try to cut the shock right at the uppermost point to try to remove it this way. So it's going to go pretty much like this. Alright, so finally, after 3 blades, I was able to cut the shock off, as you could see. Anyway, now we're going to remove that. Where is it? There you go. That top piece, and then we're going to try to wiggle this out from the top. So with the line, together with the line, I'm going to try to remove the whole upper assembly, and then I'm going to try to either remove those 2 bolts that are on top of there, or I'll have to cut those off also. So yeah, real nice. Alrighty, so here's where we're at. Here's the top piece mount. As you can see, those bolts are, try to give you a better angle view, but yeah, turn this way. But there's absolutely no way that you can get a wrench on there. The rust actually corroded them to the point so bad that you would never be able to. You would just strip them out even further than they are. I did try to loosen them, but no luck. So I'm gonna have to cut here and cut here on the other side to remove this top assembly, and hopefully that hose will I be able to reuse it, because I don't want to replace the whole hose that goes to the accumulator. So that's that. Here's this shock with no top, as you can see, and there's the mount all rusted, and this is what you get when you get a 100 series. That has a lot of rust. So I'm gonna have to get all new of these washers. There's 1, 2 with a rubber piece in the middle. I already have that. And then I'm also gonna have to get these here, because I accidentally sliced with my Sawzall this washer, so it goes like this, This is the upper piece. So I'm gonna try to find these new online somewhere, because as you can see, they're kind of falling apart. So yeah, lots of fun. So I had to use a grinder to cut those bolts completely off because they were just super rusted. So I cut the tops of the bolts off, and then tried not to damage this bracket, because I really don't want to buy a new line. These lines are expensive, but here you can see. So it was like that, and cut this off, and then was able to pry this off. This was on there really strong. Also inside, as you can see, there's an O-ring right in there. So that O-ring has to be replaced, and there's another O-ring. There should be another one. There's two, but I don't know where it is. I don't know if maybe it's on here, but maybe it's rusted. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's underneath this rust. I don't know. But next step would be to try to get these studs out of here, because I need to use this bracket. So yeah. So I tried to remove this 22 millimeter nut. I got a pretty powerful impact. This is good for, like, I think around 200 Newton meters, and this thing is not budging. I try to spray WD-40 in there and let it soak overnight, and still I can't get it off. So unfortunately, it appears as though I'm gonna have to get one new top mount here, because these I can drill out, no problem. But if I can't get this off and this cannot separate, there's a problem. So after some persuasion with a hammer, what I ended up doing was just hammering this whole piece out. As you can see, it's pretty rusted, and yeah, they came out, so that's good. So now all I got to do is drill these out. I'm sure that these threads will not be usable in this nut, so I'm gonna have to get creative there, maybe get a new nut on there. I know what you're thinking, I would just order this, but the thing is, I don't want to wait for it. So I don't, because this is a special order piece. I already checked at all the dealers, and it'll take like 2 weeks to come in. So I don't want to wait for it. You know what I'm saying? It's not this thing is only like 20 bucks, 25 bucks, but I just want to get this done today or tomorrow. All right, so what I did was these little bolts, that's all they are, is just 4 little spot welds. This one actually broke off after I hit it a couple times. This guy here needed a little bit more persuasion with a grinder, and then it just popped off as well. And then what I did was just cleaned up the rust a little bit. This one, I'm not even going to replace it. I'm just going to kind of leave it as it is. Here's the under one that locks in with the pin, and here's the other side to this guy. So I got new bushings. Here's the bolt, by the way, from the bottom. Here's the old bushings in excellent condition. As you can see, I'm just gonna hit this with some rubberized undercoating real quick. Let it dry, and then tomorrow hopefully reassemble. Okay, so here is the 2 O-rings. As you can see, this one here, it's purposely cut so that you can, it's almost like a hard plastic material. So what you're going to want to do is with this, you're going to want to kind of wiggle it in like that. Hopefully that works. And then this one sits right on top like that. So inside they sit like this together. A little bit tighter, of course, but you get the idea. And they sit in there like this. So you got to get both of these out with a pick and then install the two new O-rings. The part number for this one is 90301 11022, and for this one it's 90562 12003. All right, so I was able to get these two O-rings out, and what I used was a little pick tool like this. So easiest thing is you reach in there and then you pick out the first O-ring, and then you're going to get the rubber one out first, and that second one, so you see here's the rubber one, here's the plastic one, and then after you get that, you can pry the plastic one out. The way that I figured out was the easiest way to get this one in is you basically you start one end first. So you start like one of the ends first, and then you're just gonna keep twisting it and twisting it and twisting it, and eventually it'll start like rotating in that little groove like that, right? It'll start rotating into the groove, and then it'll just pop in place. You'll feel it pop in. You just gotta take your time because you don't want to break it, because then you're gonna have to get a whole new one. So that's it. Game plan for these is I found a couple nuts I'm gonna use for these 12mm bolts, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do everything the same, except obviously on this piece here I'm gonna have to use the nuts with the bolts because the old ones I cut off. So that's the only thing that's gonna be different. Maybe a little bit hard to hold it in place, but I'll try to see if I can make it work. Okay, so at this stage, what you're gonna do is take any kind of grease that you have for gears, and you're gonna wanna put some grease on the end right there, and then you also want to put grease on the shaft so that you can get the new bushing on. The thicker one, the bigger one, goes on first on the bottom, and then the thinner one will go on the top part. So this is the orientation, and then we have a nut. I also added a washer, the new nut, and this will attach from the top, and then these two bolts will attach the line to this little bracket. Also, what you're going to want to do is pre-fill your new shock. So you're going to pre-fill this, you're going to remove this cap, and then you're going to be pre-filling here. You're going to want to have the shock extended and fill it as much as possible. That way, when you're bleeding the system later, you don't have a lot of air in here. So I tried to put that shock in, but there weren't enough threads for the top mount to go on. Then I went and did some research. I put in my part number into Google, and apparently there's a couple different part numbers. I'm not sure, maybe they changed the thickness of the bushings, but as you can see, and I know what you're going to say, these are compressed over time. They're actually not. So believe it or not, this is about the thickness. So it's about half the thickness of this bushing, and this guy, it's almost about half as well, as you can see. So what I'm gonna have to do is basically cut these bushings about down the middle so that I have enough threads to get that top bolt on. All right, so what I had to do for you won't need to do this unless you replace that nut, but I had to hold one nut with a 13 and it kept falling off, so I super glued the nut real quick to the end. That way it wouldn't fall off, so I was holding it from this side, right? And then with this 12 flex head, right, I was tightening the top bolt, the 12 millimeter. So that was the only way to do this. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to give you guys a view, see, you can see the nut there. So I had to like look through this little tiny area and wrap my hands around the frame, like behind the frame. There it is. So actually there's like a hole in this, I don't know if it's a factory hole or not, but so you see, you can just see it. So I put my eye up against this, and that way it allowed me to get on that lower nut and the upper part as well. So unfortunately I can't give you guys a good view of it, but the strange thing is when I was putting that top hose on, the AHC hose, I was expecting like a little, I don't know, like a click or something, and I didn't hear anything. So I hope that O-ring that I put in like seated properly, because otherwise it's gonna leak. So I hope it just sits on there without any kind of you know, click or anything. But yeah, so that's it pretty much. This lower bolt, I'm not sure the torque setting, but I'm pretty sure it's right around like 60 Newton meters. And then it goes, don't forget to pre-fill, by the way, pre-fill the shock, and then it'll go behind this frame. Here's a view from the back. As you can see, there's the AHC hose, and there's that nut that holds the strut. It's honestly a terrible design. Honestly, they should have done like an access panel like Mercedes does. They have little access panels from above, and obviously I didn't want to drill, like cut the body up, but that's the part right there. And then so hopefully there's no leaks, and now I'm going to show you how to fill that reservoir, and then tomorrow I have to bleed the system to get the air out of it. Okay, so to fill the fluid, here's the part number for the fluid for you. Here's the reservoir. You just open the top, and you see after this job, you see how low we are? We're below the minimum. So I'm going to fill it up to this line, and after it's filled up to this line, I'm gonna later bleed the system. There's a bunch of videos on that already. I don't think I'm gonna make one. But the key is to never let this pump right here, this little pump, run dry. If you run that guy dry, about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you'll burn that whole pump assembly out, because it has to be lubricated by this fluid. So you see the minimum and the maximum mark, so you want the fluid to be right at the maximum mark right here. What else? Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why I bought this thing, being it has some rust issues, this is actually an 06. And 06, 07s are the best years for the Land Cruiser 100 series, in my opinion. And I'm slowly going through it. It was actually bought through somebody that I know. They were gonna get rid of this thing, and I'm slowly changing out parts like radiator. I replaced those lines were leaking there, not the power steering lines, the transmission cooler lines. Did a transmission fluid change, so because they didn't want to deal with it. So I bought it off of them, and I'm slowly going through this thing and making it at least drivable. So the rust on it, I know it's pretty rusty, but honestly, it doesn't bother me because this is going to be just like a beater, you know, Land Cruiser. See, look at all that rust there. You know, but I mean, honestly, as long as it's running and driving, I don't mind the rust. This isn't actually my daily Land Cruiser. I have another 2006 minty zero rust one that took me about a couple of years to find. But the reason I'm telling you this is because this is why everybody always says, you know, make sure you buy, you know, if you're spending, let's say 15,000, 20, 25,000 bucks on a 100 series or even a 200 series, you can get them 200s for 25 to 30 now too. Make sure the thing has no rust. You know, it's like you can fix anything on these things, right? I mean, I literally had this on my other one. I had the whole motor apart to do the valley coolant leak and all the other stuff. Timing belt, water pump, no problem. But the one thing I cannot fix is rust. So make sure that, or it takes 5 times as long, you know. So make sure if you do end up buying one, that you buy a clean one with no rust, or if you do buy a rusty one like this one, like a, you know, a secondary 06, 07. I prefer 06, 07s because they have the VVTi, they have the 5-speed transmission, a couple of updates on the interior. So if you can get it dirt cheap, right? If you can get it for like half price or even less, then go for it. But just be aware that there's going to be a lot of work involved. And by the way, these little caps suck. Sometimes they cut you right here. And so you just pretty much fill it. Try not to spill it all over the place. It always reminds me of like transmission fluid. I wonder what this stuff is or who makes it, you know, because I'm pretty sure like Toyota does not make this fluid. They sub it out to some company and charge 50 bucks for, you know, 2.5 liters, which is nuts. So if anybody knows, let me know. I'd like to know if there's maybe a cheaper alternative out there.